Hiru Onoda was born on March 9, 1922, in Kainan, Wakayama Prefecture, Japan. From a young age, Onoda was known for his dedication and determination. In 1942, he enlisted in the Imperial Japanese Army and was trained as a second lieutenant in intelligence. He was assigned to the First Sino-Japanese War and later to the Philippines in 1944 as part of a special unit with a mission to conduct guerrilla warfare against the Allied forces. In December 1944, Onoda and 3 other soldiers were dispatched to the Philippine island of Lubang. They were given strict orders to prevent the Allied forces from advancing and to sabotage their operations. However, there was one additional directive. They were told that if the war ended, they were not to surrender and should continue fighting. They were also instructed to commit suicide rather than be captured. Upon landing, Onoda's team established a base in the dense jungles, surviving off minimal supplies and engaging in guerrilla tactics. But as months passed, the soldiers began to experience a slow unraveling. One by one, Onoda's comrades were either killed in action or surrendered to the enemy. By 1950, Onoda found himself completely alone. The war had ended for the world, but not for him. He continued to receive supplies that had been dropped by the Japanese army. He had no reason to believe the war was over. The years went by, and Onoda remained steadfast, convinced that he was still on a secret mission. For years, Hiru Onoda fought an invisible war. The island of Lubang became his prison, his battle against an enemy that he could no longer see but knew was out there. He lived by his training, using his intelligence and guerrilla tactics to survive. He engaged in skirmishes, sometimes causing minor damage, and often evaded capture by the Philippine authorities. His family in Japan was devastated by the news of his disappearance. They believed he had died in combat, and Onoda's name faded into history. In the Philippines, however, rumors swirled about the strange lone soldier in the jungles who refused to surrender. Despite multiple leaflets dropped by the Japanese government and attempts by local police to convince him that the war had ended, Onoda remained unmoved. He burned the leaflets. He rejected the messages. The world moved on. In 1959, a new generation of people in Japan grew up, completely unaware of the soldier who was still at war. The Philippines, now a peaceful country, struggled with the impact of their past battles. But in 1974, Onoda's story began to attract global attention. A Japanese student named Norio Suzuki heard of the legendary soldier who was still living in the jungles of Lubang. Suzuki, determined to find Onoda, set off on a journey to locate him. After many failed attempts, Suzuki finally found Onoda in 1974, deep in the jungle, just as he was preparing to carry out his mission once more. Suzuki told Onoda the news. The war had ended. Onoda was skeptical and adamant, claiming that no one could convince him of such a thing unless it came from his superior officer. Despite Suzuki's repeated assurances, Onoda refused to surrender. Suzuki's story didn't end there. He contacted the Japanese government, and after a long series of negotiations, a solution was found. Onoda's former commanding officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, who was now a civilian, traveled to the Philippines to speak directly to him. Taniguchi's words carried weight, and in 1974, after 29 years of fighting, Hiru Onoda finally believed that the war was over. On March 9, 1974, Hiru Onoda laid down his arms. He had been living in the jungle for nearly 3 decades, unaware of the passage of time and history. He was 52 years old. Upon returning to Japan, he was greeted as a hero. He had not surrendered or given up his loyalty to his country, even when the world around him had long since moved on. His story became a symbol of the dedication and perseverance that the Japanese military valued. Hiroo Onoda's return to Japan was a media sensation. He was interviewed by the press, and his story was told all over the world. People marveled at the incredible devotion he had shown to his mission, despite the fact that it was based on misinformation. Onoda himself, however, was not completely content with his newfound fame. He struggled to adapt to the changes in Japanese society and the world at large. In 1975, Onoda moved to Brazil, where he spent several years working on a cattle ranch and eventually founding his own. Hiroo Onoda passed away on January 16, 2022, at the age of 91, leaving behind a story that remains etched in the annals of history, a story of a soldier who refused to believe that the war had ended.